everyday struggles can actually be an opportunity for us to connect with God in a deeper and powerful way. If you're like me, you've probably wondered, why hasn't God manifested himself in my life in some big, miraculous, and powerful way? I've had these thoughts from time to time, and I've asked myself this question. In fact, I know I'm not the only one because I had a friend in college who used to go to the same field every single week, and he would pray that God would show him his glory, would manifest himself in a powerful way. Show me your glory, he would shout, and he would boast about how that's something that he would do. And I used to think to myself, well, I'm not going to go out to an open field and do that. But I did want God to show himself in some big, fancy, mighty way, right? And I wasn't sure exactly why I wanted that. Maybe I wanted an affirmation for my faith. Maybe I wanted to be sure that God was with me. Maybe I wanted to know that he would manifest himself to me. And so I thought about that one day as I sat in traffic, and I realized that I was frustrated because things were not going as I wanted. I wasn't progressing in the traffic the way that I wanted. I wasn't progressing in my life the way that I wanted. I felt stuck. I felt like I was spinning my wheels, but I wasn't going anywhere. And that's when it hit me. At that very moment that something frustrating happened on the road, I just looked up and I said, Lord, help me. And I realized that I did that quite often. In fact, anytime that I was frustrated, anytime that something happened that caused me to feel either helpless, afraid, or angry or overwhelmed, whatever it was, I would just stop and be like, help me, Lord, help me. And I know that my position and the direction of my request was to God. Now, I'm saying that because I believe, and I've come to understand that in the mundane is where God wants to show up. And this is something that makes sense because when I think about a relationship, right? And I don't think about God as just this external thing, this external power. I believe that God is a person who wants to have a relationship with us. And when I think about a person who wants to have a relationship with somebody, they want to have a relationship that is every day, that's involved in the day to day, that is going to bed together, that is waking up together, that is doing life together, having food together, sharing moments together, making memories together. And I believe that God is the same way. He doesn't just want to show up on big events and be a part of your life occasionally. He wants to be involved with you on the day to day. And if we were to shift our focus and instead of looking for this big theophany, right, this big apparition of God, a burning bush, let's say, or fire to rain down from heaven, or a giant explosion in the heavens with God's face and Jesus showing up, for us to be like, well, that's God's presence in my life. Maybe that's not what it means to have God's presence in your life. Maybe having God's presence in your life just means that whenever you're frustrated in traffic and you're stuck at a light, you look up and you say, Lord, help me. And that sends up a connection and you connect to God. And all of those tiny little micro moments where you connect with God in those frustrations that happen in life just create this web of connection that unite us with God in a relational way that makes it an everyday, everyday thing. And I think that that's what God prefers. More than this big apparition, more than a big thing, it's connecting with Him in every day. So that's what shifted in my mind. The shift was I began to see those moments as connection points to God. And and I wondered, does that over time compound into a deeper, more meaningful relationship? And the answer was yes. That turned into a deeper, more meaningful relationship because I began to see God everywhere, involved in every part of my story, and not just in some big moment. He wasn't just showing up for the big things, he was showing up on the every single day. And that is why we see that Paul, for example, he tells us to pray without ceasing. And you think about, well, how do you pray without ceasing? Well, you pray without ceasing by connecting with God in small connection points that happen every single day. When something good happens, you lift up some praise. When something bad happens, you ask God for strength. When something that really takes you down or you feel low energy or whatever it is, you feel scared, you lift up a prayer. And in that moment, you are connecting with God. And as you do that and you begin to notice that on your everyday, you'll begin to see God's involvement and his influence in your life, not just in the big brushstrokes, but also in the daily, mundane, monotonous, repetitive tasks that could, he scared me just now, that could exhaust us. God wants to be involved in your life today. He wants to be involved with you in a meaningful way in the daily.